Ladies and gentlemen, it is time. Welcome to today's webinar, 4 Key Considerations to Creating Customer Centricity in the Cloud, brought to you by CCW Digital and Avtex. Now, flexibility has long been a key word among customer contact professionals, a key aspiration and demand. It's something we all talk about wanting to have. We know we want to be able to adapt to new channels and address new customer demands, prepare for new workflows, and respond to changing market environments. It's also something we consistently admit we don't have. We often talk about our limited systems, our slow platforms, our unintuitive interfaces as reasons why we can't improve our customer experience. Reasons why that idea of customer centricity remains one of those all talk, no walk pursuits. This is why CCW Digital data confirms that only 12% of consumers have seen improvements to the customer experience over the past few years. So again, all that talk, not that much success, not that much walk. Now, no matter what was going on in April of 2020, we would be talking about the need to address this reality, the need to develop a more flexible and agile contact center. But now that we're seeing firsthand how dramatically the marketplace can shift, this conversation becomes even more pressing, even more urgent. The idea of creating a flexible, scalable, customer-centric environment across all of our channels and touch points, it's no longer just a nice to have. It's not just an aspiration. It's one of those, you either have it or you're going to struggle obligations. Now today, we're going to show you how to fulfill that obligation, how to overcome the challenge. We're going to show you how to turn your contact center technology into a source of greater customer centricity. And we have 2 great speakers from Avtex to help get us there. So we have 2 phenomenal speakers, as I mentioned, and one of those is Greg. He's a strategic business consultant for Avtex. So Greg, how's everything going?
It's going fantastic. Thanks, Brian. I'm Greg Dockers. I've been helping our customers create better customer experiences and also helping companies with digital transformation and cloud migration strategy.
And he's also joined here by Robert. Thrilled to have him, who is the Senior Director of Contact Center Innovation and Architect for Avtex. So, Robert, what's your background? What do you focus on, and how are you doing right now?
So my title kind of tells a lot about it. I'm mainly focused on contact center, but I also deal with the CRM side of our business as well for business continuity, for high-end applications, big data, AI. I delve with the new technology, how we can bring that into the contact center and make better customer experiences. And so that's really my goal, is to help our customers to create those great customer experiences with the technology that they can have at hand.
And that's why I'm so thrilled to have both of you here, because you really have people who are looking at the full circle dimension of what your customers want, where your gaps are in your contact center, and what it takes to align the two so that your technology, your processes, your systems are putting you in position to deliver that customer centricity, that great experience. And as you can see, those of you who have attended CCW Digital webinars before, you know my voice, you know that generally I'm the ones who cause you to hit that lower volume button on your screen, and I'm Brian Cantor, Principal Analyst for CCW Digital. We're going to be addressing some vital topics during today's webinar. But as I go through this brief overview of the agenda, I really want to reiterate one thing. We're focusing on 4 considerations for building customer centricity in the cloud. Look at that topic carefully. It's not 4 super cool things your cloud contact center can probably do. It's about specific ways to leverage cloud to become more customer centric. And so as you can see from this list, each agenda item really carries some clear ramifications for customer centricity. We're going to start by looking at some of the common mistakes we're making. We know that technology is supposed to help bring us closer to our customers, but in some cases, it's actually increasing that divide. We need to address that today. Now, you can't talk about connecting with customers, especially right now with so much changing about the way we interact, without addressing the channel question. we're going to be looking at how to become available in more touch points. And then as you start to add those channels to your journey, how can you make sure that you're creating a more seamless experience for your customers, really striving toward that omni-channel end? Now, customer centricity is not possible if you don't know your customers. So we're going to spend time diving deeper into data to understand what customers are going through, how they're feeling, what they're experiencing, because when you have that information, you can orchestrate stronger journeys. And of course, with all the talk about the customer experience becoming a business-wide objective, we definitely want to spend some time looking at how to align the entire team around your experience. Now, we're also, as we take a deep dive into this topic, I want to provide a reminder that you can submit questions at any time using the console on your screen. Additionally, the session will be recorded, so you'll have the chance to relive the conversation, take notes, and share it with your team. You'll get an email with the link after the fact. So as I mentioned, the goal of this conversation and any investment into contact center technology is about customer centricity. It's not just about having some cool features or bragging about what you theoretically could do. It's making sure that what you're investing in really does bring your business closer to your customers. And so if we're going to have that conversation, if we're going to throw that down as the objective for today's dialogue, then it really does seem important to identify what it means to be customer-centric. Greg, I'm going to let you take that one.
Oh, sure. Thanks, Brian. So yeah, you mentioned it earlier, how many companies lack that technology, lack the tools to provide really personalized customer-centric experiences, right? So over the last decade or so, I've really seen two forces kind of converging on itself. The first one is that your customers' expectations keep evolving, and they demand more personalized experience. They want to feel special, like you know them, right? And they're far more easily annoyed by having to expend a lot of effort to get what they want. The second thing I've noticed is that cloud platforms over the last decade or so have really matured to the point now where they can offer far more capability and flexibility than the premise-based platforms, a whole room full of servers, for example. So cloud computing, security has come a long way. So cloud has really become the enabler to help create those experiences that reinforce your brand, that build customer loyalty, and really help you remain competitive. And I'm kind of excited and encouraged to see a lot of organizations taking advantage of those two forces coming together.
Definitely, and it is the fundamental goal. It's why we're all here. It's why companies like Avtex exist, why platforms like CCW Digital exist. It's about empowering that journey toward customer centricity and really building those stronger relationships with customers. Now, the reality, though, is that we're not there yet. Organizations are struggling on so many different levels to achieve customer centricity, to make sure that what they're doing in terms of the processes they're putting in place, the systems they have, are actually aligning with what customers are looking for. Now, to figure this out and to understand why, for all the talk and all the alignment within our community around customer centricity, why we're not getting there, CCW Digital has been doing some research into some of the key challenges. So you've seen some of these in our market studies. Some of these stats have yet to be published, but will be coming out in future market studies. And these are really looking at some of the key challenges. We first started with, on the high level, what are some performance challenges, things that are getting in the way of companies as they want to just deliver a higher performing contact center, make sure that their agents and their team are able to connect with customers. First and foremost, agents not having an integrated desktop for engaging across channels. So when we're creating this additional effort for agents, and we know this is only going to be compounded as our current systems, when we want to add new channels, we want to add new functionality, we want to upgrade our contact centers, we're often just adding on top of that, creating more complexity. This effort is obviously thwarting agents' ability to really deliver what customers are looking for. Speaking of a lack of unity and an increase of fragmentation, there's the lack of a 360-degree view. So when our contact centers, our experienced designers, our frontline agents cannot look across the entire journey to really understand what's going on with customers, they're of course unable to, first of all, know what customer centricity means for that given customer, and then secondly, just act as efficiently and productively as possible. We also have scenarios where agents are spending too much time on unimportant work. We haven't yet integrated automation correctly. we still have them doing these menial tasks that, because our systems are not as efficient as they need to be, agents have to kind of shoulder some of that workload, and it really hurts their ability to perform for customers. And then I touched on the ineffective use of AI, but also the lack of context. So when customers escalate from other channels, when they call and we don't know why they're calling, how are agents going to be expected to perform properly? So what's going to happen there is you're going to have a scenario where they're just not able to deliver and they're not going to be able to succeed for customers. Now, we also wanted to look at some top technology challenges as well. And again, you see here, specifically looking at systems, when they don't have a 360-degree view across those different systems, it means that your technology is not doing what it's supposed to be doing. It's supposed to be making life easier for agents. It's supposed to be providing a better window into the experience. And without that unity across the different channels, it's actually creating more complexity for our teams. The lack of integration across channels, so not only on the back end, but on the front end. If we can't easily support customers as they move throughout the journey, if it takes a long time for an agent to go from a WhatsApp conversation to a chat to a phone call, that's going to show in terms of a poor customer experience. Many of our tools do not give us the data that we need. So whether that is data about the customer and about what the customer is experiencing, or if that's just data about how employees are using our technology, without that robust reporting and analytics, we can't identify root causes. We can't identify what really matters to our customers and what is really affecting our agents, and that's going to stand in the way of success. And then finally, contact centers cannot properly connect to enterprise systems. I mentioned earlier in one of the pillars that it's about aligning the entire business, and if you can't even connect to the entire business, you're really going to struggle in that regard. So if we take all these challenges together and we really look at this limited integration, the lack of support for omnichannel, the lack of insight into our contact center, and the lack of unity across the board, we really see the importance of having a cloud-based environment that has easy API capabilities that lets us quickly integrate new functionality seamlessly. We need to have the ability to leverage automation and make sure that we are allowing our team to be more productive so they can focus on truly connecting with customers. We need to have a stronger ability to collect and action data. We need to, right now, our on-premises systems are preventing us from collecting this data and then let alone scaling based on that information. We can't have that anymore. We need to remain agile and customer-centric as we learn what's happening. We want to be able to add new features, integrate new channels, and ensure we're consistently connecting with the business. And so, ultimately, this is going to reference the necessities, the obligations, the key critical points that we have to achieve as part of our migration to the cloud. And that's going to be the remainder of today's discussion. How can we achieve things like a more agent-centric environment, quicker ability to adapt, better use of workflows, more alignment across the organization? That's why I'm so excited to jump into today's discussion and really walk through these 4 key considerations. So starting with the first one, it is quite simple, avoiding the common mistakes. A lot of the challenges I brought up on the previous slide, those are not because companies are not investing in technology, but because their technology is not doing what it's supposed to be doing. And that we need to avoid those pitfalls and those common mistakes. So I want the Avtex guys here to walk through some steps for identifying those mistakes and making sure that we do not fall into those traps.
Thanks, Brian. We at Avtex have really seen an uptick lately because, of course, the pandemic. People that are frantically trying to accomplish what we're talking about today. They do not have the business continuity in place. They don't have the ability to just send people home. And so we've had a lot of work recently in the market. And this is a quote of one of ours where we took this customer who was in a very legacy-based system, and within 4 days, over a weekend, we were able to send most of their staff home and got them working at home on WebRTC phones. I mean, phones over the internet, on their local computers, but still able to access those legacy systems, their CRM, their ERP, all of these other systems that they had to access. And so we very quickly helped them deploy that remote force. And this is just one of the many examples of letters that we receive every day from those customers. Because right now we're in a phase where people are trying to react more than plan for the future. So they're reacting to what we are presenting here today for the needs of what's happening to us around the world. So like I said, we've seen a lot of focus right now with the COVID-19 responding to the crisis and people trying to figure out how do they get these remote workers in a stable environment and a secure environment a lot of times. How do they plan for business continuity? They didn't have this on their whiteboard before this, and now it's necessary. And then, of course, how do you provide that same customer service to the people that are calling in? How do you provide the tools to the agents remotely so that they can service those customers in the same fashion or hopefully even better than they did before? And of course, this all comes around to the employees that are hard at work at home with kids, not able to leave the house, dealing with internet issues, and still being able to provide that customer service. And I think maintaining that commitment to just a high level of customer service is what most companies really want to attain. And right now, responding to that is just critical, getting that out quickly and in an established way that not just for today, but going forward, they can utilize this in any fashion. Right, Greg?
Yeah, agree. And, in fact, we've seen a huge uptick in activity. I mean, a lot of our customers have been in basically triage mode when the COVID-19 crisis started to really hit. Most companies, your contact center is the most customer-facing part of that whole experience. And, if you don't have a contact center up and running, you're dead in the water. So, a lot of our customers, their main primary objective was to get the contact center back in business. For example, if I use an example of a bank, right, because, in some areas they have reduced hours for retail banking, and, a lot of customers can't always get to the bank. Maybe they don't want to go to the bank because they're afraid to become exposed. So they do a lot more of their banking via the web and via phone. Well, that's caused a huge increase in volumes into the contact center. And at the same time, the contact centers need to send all their agents home. Now, for our cloud customers, that was fairly easy. But for some of our premise customers, or even prospective customers that aren't Avtex customers yet that were calling us, that was what they were up against. They can't just send their agents home without infrastructure. So that's why cloud becomes important. And then the second thing they really need to focus on, once they get the contact center back in business, there are other support roles, back office, for example, that are necessary. Going back to the banking example, in addition to a customer's physical health, they're also concerned about their financial health. They might need to extend their credit line on a credit card, or they might need approval from a loan officer or something, or an underwriter. So those back office functions become critical. So we need to keep them plugged in. We need to extend unified communication solutions out to those back office workers so they can communicate. And then finally, after that, we see customers trying to strategize and, well, how can we automate things? How can we handle this increased volume? What about a bot strategy? What about more intelligent IVR? So they're looking at opening up other digital channels and self-service to help deal with that increased traffic. And then finally, the last piece is really the employee experience. Now, you sent your entire workforce home to work from their home, from their desk. But how do you ensure that they're doing the same type of work as they would do if they were in the office, right? How do you maintain consistency and quality? And, people are looking at desktop analytics tools to ensure that they're actually doing work and they're adhering to policy. And so there's a lot of things to look at, but this is sort of the evolution we've seen since the COVID-19 disaster started.
Yeah, and, this doesn't pertain to contact center. This goes along with other business areas, as you mentioned. We're seeing now customers that are taking their PBX and figuring out how they can then extend those users to the home as well. So it's not just the contact center we're talking about; it's the entire organization. So, Greg?
Yeah, I mean, it's all in the name of business continuity.
Mm-hmm.
So a lot of these changes we're seeing are permanent changes. We don't see the pendulum swinging all the way back. I mean, this is really game changing.
Yes. Mm-hmm. You know, and when we're looking at these implementations, you know, the problem is that people aren't realizing the scale of it. And, you know, this is where do they start prioritizing? Of course, you mentioned that, you know, having the contact center is key because that's where people are going to get their business done. But you'll also see, you know, that there is a scale of how we can satisfy those customers in different ways, as you mentioned, with AI, with bots, with SMS, with other channels, and really trying to figure out how that customer would want to contact us. I know calling my bank, I called in and they said the average wait time is 3 hours, and they gave me no callback. They gave me no other option for chatting. They gave me no other option for email or anything except to hold for 3 hours on the phone, which I don't have 3 hours to wait for them. So it is becoming a problem of scale right now.
Yeah, indeed.
And so when we look at how they're doing this, how we're implementing and scaling this, it really comes down to these four things. We, first of all, work with customers and create a mission statement. What is the mission statement that they need to do? Is it right now just reacting, getting people at home because they have to? Or is this something long-term that they can continually develop and maybe move more things to the cloud so they don't have to be in a reactive mode anytime something like this happens? You know, maybe it's a hurricane next time or it's a flood someplace or something, and they need to do the same thing. They'll be prepared for it. And then, of course, you know, knowing the customers and their preferences. My preference is I don't want to call. I don't want to sit on the phone for 3 hours. I'd rather, you know, put a call back in and let them call me back, you know, whenever they can, or a chat that I can just chat with people, and I know that they're probably dealing with 14 other people on the chat, but at least I know I'm talking to somebody. And then one thing is that, you know, people try to take off more than they can chew. As Greg, you mentioned once, you know, they try to boil the ocean, you know, and doing like-for-like deployments is like that. So, yeah, let's take this huge thing that we've built for the past 20 years, let's put it in the cloud. That just doesn't work. You know, you need to really put it piece by piece and determine what best fits your business and your customer needs. And then, you know, really design for scale, because this is an unprecedented event. But they're saying, hey, we might have this again when fall comes around again, and, you know, are people going to be ready for it? You know, are they scaled to be able to do this again without all of the, you know, the hoops and the hurdles that they're facing now? And I think that's going to be the key, is getting, you know, these four things down now, so that in the future they'll be in place. Anything to add there, Greg?
Yeah, I think you nailed it right there, Robert. Thank you. I would just say, you know, you talked about like-for-like deployment. Look for immediate opportunities to realize rapid time to value. If it's changing one thing, if it's adding one self-service feature or streamlining your IVR menus, anything to make it a leaner experience and more customer-friendly, I mean, it's not an introducing risk if you're just changing, you know, the experience like that. You know, I always look for opportunities to improve when you're changing platforms. It's a great opportunity. It's a clean slate.
Right, which, you know, brings us to our next pillar that we've been talking about here, which is, you know, channels and how you produce those channels for.
That next pillar really about adding and integrating channels to create a more omni-channel experience is not only so essential, but it really just ties into exactly what you both just spoke about, which is this notion that, first of all, we're not just trying to play catch up for what's happening right now. And yes, of course, having more channel options will help mitigate the volume, help create some consistency around your experience. So definitely important, but our goal isn't just to be responsive. Our goal is to really identify how can we add more value to the customer experience? How can we do things for our customers and create better workflows for our agents in a way that we weren't doing yesterday or last year or a decade ago? And channels are really going to play a huge role there because they can totally transform your experience. make it more efficient, and really be where your customers are to create that sense of appreciation and value for the customer. But when you're doing it, it's essential to do it correctly, picking the right channels to add for the right situations, and then making sure that whatever you add to your experience really ties into your overall offering so that you are as seamless as possible. Because if you're just tacking on new channels, you're back where you were before you were looking at cloud technology. You're not really achieving that goal. You're not going to make life easier for your agents or for your customers. You're not going to be getting toward that omni-channel ambition.
Yeah, I agree, Brian. I'm glad you brought up those points. We know that the customer's digital journey is very fluid, right? We know that customers typically begin their journey on the web, and it moves into other channels, and finally, the phone call might be the last resort. But contact centers, a lot of contact centers I've seen have been built out in silos. So, you think about 15 years ago, we called them call centers because they just took calls. They were voice only. Then the internet came along, and then social media and smartphones that changed the world. So, we've been catching up, trying to tack on these bolting on these new channels to the contact center. But we really need a more integrated approach because, cloud, because it's a digital first technology, cloud enables that continuity from the digital journey, from web or from chat, right directly to an agent with context. So you can see where the customer's been. You have a holistic view.
Yeah, and along that line is the ability to take all of those channels into a single interface. What we're seeing today especially is people do not have time to go out and research the best chat engine, the best SMS engine, the best WhatsApp engine, and bringing those into their current space. They need something they can deploy quickly to satisfy all of those channels. So it doesn't matter what channel they come in, the agent experience and the customer experience is the same. That's one of the reasons that we've had such success with the Genesys Cloud solution is that they don't have to go out and source many different vendors. They can go to a single cloud vendor, have all of the capabilities under one roof, and essentially have all the same experience across both the agent, the supervisor, the managers, the customers. They all experience the same type of interface. So I think what we're going to see more and more of is a distancing of these siloed type of activities where people in the marketing company go to a competitor of the product that is using in the CRM. And you might see all of a sudden, hey, is there something we can both use that will satisfy the needs that we both have? And we're going to see more and more of that. And we've seen that with a lot of the products that we are now pushing into the marketplace to help our customers become more customer-centric.
Yeah, all good points. Thank you, Robert.
Yeah. So.
Now, when you talk about customer centricity, there's something that's very fundamental to that. Understanding who your customers are, what they want, and what they're going through. If you don't have firm, actionable answers to those questions, there's no way you can calibrate your contact center to your customer needs. There's no way you can identify the biggest sources of inefficiency, the biggest opportunities to be more productive. So data is absolutely essential. And when you're looking at migrating to the cloud and then making the most of your technology, it's essential to understand what data you're going to need, where you're going to get it, and most importantly, how you're going to be able to use that data to make all the improvements from those minor tweaks within a call to major customer experience design changes. You need to let data drive your decision-making and put you on that path to customer centricity. So that's a very important third pillar that I want to let the guys here discuss, how you can go about making data fundamental to your contact center strategy.
Yeah, I think this has always been difficult for organizations. I mean, over the last decade or so, because a lot of contact centers were built out using, I hate to call it legacy, but legacy platforms which create islands of data and different configuration databases. I mean, businesses need to curate relevant data, relevant customer data that lets them predict what the customer is going to do and to personalize that experience to produce the right outcomes. And that's the challenge, really. Cloud does make that a lot easier, indeed.
Yeah, I think the problem with a lot of the siloed information is that there has been fiefdoms of data and people that protect that data from others in their organization. And that's not the way that the customer wants it. They want to know that if they call in from a marketing campaign to a customer service rep, that they're aware of the past tech support tickets that they've had. And so they want that centralized data. Unfortunately, though, it's creating a huge inventory of data that companies can't handle. And so they have these big now silos of data from all kinds of points. We're getting data from how often they log into a cell phone app, to when they walk into a store or when they are browsing the website. All of this data is now being combined into these huge centralized data warehouses, and really only AI can take care of that. AI is the only thing that can go through and search through this data in a fashion that makes it memorable for the agents and also makes it very customer-centric. We are promoting a product from Microsoft called Customer Insights, and that will take data from very disparate systems. It could be credit card statements to how often you use your VIP coupons, or how often you call into the contact center or go to a website or get a mailer. All of these things can come together into insights where you can determine churn, you can determine what interests are, or better yet, how you can design marketing campaigns around how people are responding to them, and even to different age groups. So, I mean, we have different generations of people. I'm a phone guy. I never got into the app stuff. I text my kids. That's about it. But if somebody tried to give me a promotion through an app pop-up, I probably would never respond to it. But if they send me a text or they call me, I probably would answer and find out what do they want. And so you can get these trends on how people are responding to your marketing and outreach, and be able to target them more specifically with the way that these people want to communicate with you.
Yeah, I mean, the technology's out there. I mean, if you look at all the digital personal assistants we have today, like, Amazon Alexa and things, I mean, it's commoditized now, but it's tough. The last thing is pulling it into the contact center and leveraging that type of intelligence. If you want to do any kind of advanced analytics, or if you're trying to set the table for an AI strategy down the road, the effectiveness of that whole strategy depends almost entirely on the data that you feed into it. I mean, the hardest part about an AI chatbot strategy isn't writing the algorithms, because the best algorithms are already written and published in open source. But the hardest part is creating the data sets used to train those algorithms. Not only does the data need to be accurate, but it needs to be representative of the problem you're trying to solve. And if you're feeding in data that's not correct or incomplete, your results may wind up equally incorrect or incomplete.
Right, and I think it comes also down to who is giving you the data and for what purposes. And really, that is, like I said, it's not only customer-centric, but employee-centric, so that you are gathering data from all sources within your company to provide a single customer-centric decision for this purpose, for this marketing campaign, for this outreach, for this tech support issue that we're having. So, this comes down to bringing everybody in under the same shed, under the same roof, and talking together, which probably brings us into our next pillar, correct, Brian?
It absolutely does, and that's such important advice there, because what you really focused on, and what I love about the conversation, was the goal wasn't, here's what we think a good customer experience looks like, or even, here's what our customers are saying they want in some random surveys, but it's about really understanding what aspects of your experience, what aspects of your overall business move the needle in the direction you want. Make employees more productive, make customers become loyal advocates as opposed to bitter enemies who are not only going to a competitor but bashing your brand. And so understanding the data, really the insights that can help trigger what customers are going to do, anticipate their actions, and drive the most favorable outcomes, that's so important. Now, that's also a reason why the contact center has become an even more valuable player in the business world than just the people who take care of customers. Because they have position to access all this vast information that can transform branding messages, employee hiring decisions, product development, business continuity planning, all that comes from data that the contact center can access. So when the organization understands what the contact center is doing and why it needs to elevate its technology, why it needs to pursue certain data and move into certain channels, that is when the entire organization has the value it needs. And so for this to happen, for the organization to first of all sign off on some of these changes, but second of all, know how to work with the contact center to get the most of this information, to turn better interactions and more data into meaningful business results, that's when you really have to have the entire enterprise aligned. As I mentioned earlier, the lack of integration is not just your chat channel doesn't talk to your phone channel, it's your contact center right now in many cases is not talking to the rest of the business. And if that communication line is broken, then all the value this customer data can bring, all the value a great customer experience can bring is going to be cast by the wayside. So it's really important for this fourth and final pillar to focus on that alignment.
Very true. And one thing I like about Avtex is that we have taken that approach to not only just suggesting it to customers, but by providing an entire group of people that go in and help the total business understand all their business processes, where there is issues. We have a CX division that it goes in and just looks at customer experience from many factors and any way that the customer is coming into your organization and interacting with you. We also have Greg's team, which is going in and looking at how agents are doing things, how supervisors are working, how managers are dealing with the day-to-day issues. Greg, maybe you can explain kind of what we do around that and how that fits into this getting other stakeholders involved.
Yeah, thank you, Robert. Yeah, you have to bring everybody to the table because everybody is going to have valuable input. You know, we insist upon having a cross-functional team at different levels, not only direct level managers, but even people in the trenches, people that live it every day and are making promises to the customers that they feel that they have to make good on. So, you know, yeah, just cross-functional and make sure everybody has a voice. And also, you know, what's very important is executive engagement, not just executive sponsorship of a contact center transformation, but really engagement from the C-level. I mean, it needs to be top-down, and there needs to be a clear strategy and buy-in across the organization for anything to for it to be really, truly successful. And then, of course, engaging other areas too. You know, like your marketing team may have already developed customer personas of, you know, what's a typical customer like? You know, what are their buying motivations? What are their behaviors? That's valuable to include them. And then, you know, so fulfillment. Here's a great example where a contact center agent makes a commitment to a customer and says, yes, we'll get that shipped out today. Great. Then the call ends, but is the customer going to get an email confirmation that the item was shipped? And, you know, are they going to be able to track the package? I mean, that's all like fulfillment side. So you got to think about the whole customer experience, even outside of the contact center.
One thing about the cloud is it's made the design so easy now because You don't have to stand up servers and get programmers and go to school for 2 weeks to learn how to use the systems. The systems are made in such a way that a business user could design a call flow with text-to-speech and prove it out to them, to the rest of the audience of what they want to do. And then the engineers can take it and tweak it and be able to make it exactly what fits all the business needs. But it's nice because we can do a lot of more inclusiveness in the design work because we're not waiting for people to build programs. We're just saying, hey, let's try this, or let's see what that looks like, or how does this sound? And it gets a lot more people involved because they aren't, watching flowcharts of software design and meetings on how testing. So we should really look at how we can do that and include those other people in this design process. Now, what happens to your IT? They don't go away. They become experts in AI. They become experts in analytics. They become experts in service, deliveries and things like this, or workflows. So your IT teams that were used to handling all of the programming and the setup and all of that went into these systems can now focus on more customer-centric things that provide better value to the company than just setting up a server.
All great points, Robert. Thank you.
So that does bring us near the end of our discussion, but as promised, our speakers are very happy to answer the questions we have from the audience. We've already received a ton of those questions, but we want to encourage you to keep submitting those. Even though we only have a few minutes left, Greg and Robert will be thrilled to answer anything via email that we don't get to live. But I'm not going to give a nice preamble at the expense of asking some questions, so let's dive into those. So first and foremost, this person's talking about what's going on right now in the world. With everything going on, has Avtex received more inquiries or requests about migrating to the cloud?
Yeah, I mean, this is huge on everybody's mind. How do I do it? We take the approach that maybe you don't need to move to the cloud right now. Maybe you're not ready, or it's not the good time to make a knee-jerk reaction. And we defined ways of implementing the cloud for at-home agents right now, or work-at-home people, and be able to tie that into existing systems so that your infrastructure can remain in place and you're extending just the voice or extending the applications into that home computer environment so that they can serve as if they were sitting in the office, yet not replacing all of the infrastructure and all the technologies that you have in place. So, yeah, there's a big uptick, but our goal is not to move people when they don't need to. It's when their time is right. And this is not the time to be, just forklifting everything into the cloud. There's too much disruption already. Is to figure out how you can utilize the cloud with your existing infrastructure.
Yeah, and it's interesting because our next question directly concerned at-home agents. So, I'm wondering if you could maybe elaborate, and Greg, this might be a perfect chance for you to jump in as well, as far as what you're seeing in terms of the increased demand for relying on at-home agents and what that means in terms of the shift toward the cloud, and any specific recommendations you have about how cloud technology can really come in big to help companies who are unfamiliar with at-home agents but now have no choice but to rely on them.
Right. I would say before the COVID-19 crisis started to really hit, only the more progressive organizations would actually offer a work-at-home program for agents. It wasn't a lot of people still think they need to be in the building and be supervised, physically. But with the recent developments, they've had to go from 0 to 60, and they've had to completely change their thinking. And they've been in triage mode, just trying to get agents pushed out to the home and get them back online.
Yeah.
So I think it has driven a lot of cloud activity, definitely.
Yeah, I think one thing, though, is we're going to see a big backlash of this, is that you're going to see a lot of people realize that they can work from home and find companies that will give them at-home work. And also companies are going to realize, hey, I don't need a third of my office space. I could keep these people working at home. And so I think we're going to see a big shift because of this in the way that people look for jobs and keep jobs.
Yes, indeed. I agree.
Yeah.
This next question also ties into another potential marketplace shift, and that is AI-based self-help. So AI-driven self-service, chatbots, that sort of thing. This person asks, how many of Avtex's customers are currently exploring or deploying AI-based self-service, and what would be some of the benefits that you see, and what might be some challenges that they need to prepare for?
Greg, why don't you answer that? And I think I have some thoughts on the end there. So.
Yeah, sure. I think a lot of our customers are asking about it. They want to learn more about it because that's kind of the next big thing. I mean, everybody's talking AI and bots, but customers they're always looking for a hard dollar ROI around it. Like, how many calls can I avoid? How many calls can I push over to self-service now that I don't have to type a live agent? And eventually that may happen where AI is able to completely replace humans for certain roles. But I think in the contact center, that's not going to happen anytime soon. You still need a live agent there, with emotional intelligence and empathy to handle a type of call where the caller that's calling in is really agitated or upset. So, bots don't deal very well with that. So, but yeah, we're seeing a lot of interest in AI strategy, certainly.
Yeah, I think right now the interest is getting people information quickly because they don't have the staff to handle all the volume of calls or the volume of emails. And so bots are being able to do that. People that are being laid off, how do they apply for unemployment benefits with the local agency or the state governments? Insurance, how do I go on COBRA? What is my options for extending my COBRA? Things like that. Quick questions that could be answered with a bot that can get people their answer quickly. And I see that right now is a big uptick. But really, as Greg mentioned, people take the approach of AI as, let's let the AI do the work that we don't want to do. And that's the wrong approach. The approach should be, let the AI do the work that the AI can do, and let our agents focus on the more customer-centric feature problems and issues that take a human-to-human interaction, not a bot, human-to-bot interaction.
Yeah, I agree, and it needs to be really a top-down sort of strategic approach. We need to look at how can we improve the customer experience and improve, the way the customer perceives your brand. That's a much more different discussion, and it's not just trying to solve a particular problem. It's trying to.
Or how many calls can I get rid of? Right. Right.
Right.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So given that, I felt like we have time for one more question, and I felt like it made sense to find this perfect question here, which concerned exactly that augmentation ability of AI. So this person's asking, for those companies that are looking to offer AI-enhanced customer experiences this year, what might be some guiding principles that you recommend for success, and where might be the quickest wins and the best place to focus the early efforts to really maximize that synergy between AI and the human workforce?
Yeah, it comes down to what we were talking about. Are you looking at deflection, or are you looking at more deeper customer service? I think that the latter is where you're going to make wins, is how do you get your agents focused on dealing with issues that are really important to customers, and have the bots handle those issues that can be quickly answered and don't require a lot of emotion in them, as Greg mentioned earlier. And there are many tools out there. Microsoft Power virtual agents are there that allow anybody to build a bot very quickly. Genesis Cloud allows you to build bots with Lex or Google and integrate them right into your IVR or your SMS flow or your chat flows very quickly and easily without any deployment of any other applications or any servers or anything like that. You just apply for the service, you write your bot, and you can activate it. Where I see, though, is you're going to see a lot of people that are wanting to find out how they can service customers quickly. Unfortunately, I think that's what we're going to be seeing in the short term, and there are tools out there for that. You can take these things, but make sure whatever you do is that that bot has a human to pass the call off to. We see so many times where we get to the end of the bot and it says, I'm sorry, I can't help you. Please call this number. That's just so wrong. It needs to pass off to an agent that can look at the conversation that the person had with the bot and carry it on in a meaningful manner, person to person.
Yeah, actually, Robert, that happened to me last week where I had to contact a service provider. So I went to the website and couldn't get my problem solved. So I tried their little chatbot. And no matter what I typed in related to my problem, it said, sorry, I can't help you. I haven't been trained to do that yet. And so, it advised me to call into the contact center. So I picked up the phone as a last resort, and their call center was closed because of COVID-19. So, here lies the problem where a lot of people I talk to have had a bad experience with a bot, right? Because they just haven't been trained. They don't have the data to train them. So if you do it, make sure we do it right.
Yeah, train.
Yeah, and I think that's
train.
what's so important right now is because because of companies, so many companies are doing that. I mean, Greg, that's certainly not the only example of you have to start with the bot right now because there's no one to take your call. And so you're going to get customers who have ordinarily, they've tried bots and they failed, or they're just inherently, they don't want to deal with the bot because they want to scream at someone on the other line, whatever it may be. They're avoiding bots in their everyday lives. This is a good chance to show them that actually bots can simplify their lives, can handle certain issues, can make the experience more convenient, but it has to be done. If you're going to have this new exposure, this new spotlight on this technology, it has to be done right. And that means knowing what bots can and can't do, not forcing them to do things that they don't do well. And then secondly, knowing that if the customer does hit a dead end, you have to show them how easy it is to get the help that they're looking for. And so this is really a time where, yes, there's going to be, as you both mentioned, so much pressure to come up with new ways to streamline call volume, and that may mean deploying bots and self-service more aggressively than you have in the past. But if you're doing that, it is so essential to make sure that you're giving a good first impression and using bots correctly at the right spot, and that you're not using this as a dead end for them to not be able to speak to a live agent, but as a way to either help them without having to wait for someone, or help them by qualifying them, getting the context, and then passing it to someone who can help, so you still get the combination of efficiency, but also the personalization, the issue complexity, the emotion. They're so important to every customer experience, and certainly so important right now.
Couldn't agree more. Thank you for your time.
Definitely. So both Greg and Robert for their vast amount of insights throughout the webinar. As we started talking about earlier, technology is supposed to solve problems. It's not there to be flashy, to be cool. Some of it very much is, for sure, but the real goal is to allow you to achieve your objectives and your purpose easier, more efficiently, and more productively than you have in the past. If we look at so many of the challenges right now, technology has not been living up to that standard. But if you follow those 4 pillars that were shared throughout the webinar, you can use technology as the instrument for creating customer centricity, as the instrument for making life easier for everyone in your business to understand the customer experience, know who the customers are, know what they're trying to achieve, and deliver it time and time again, whenever or wherever they choose to interact. Thank you so much to Avtex for working with us on this webinar. Thanks to all of you who attended and submitted your questions. And of course, for CCW Digital, this has been Brian Cantor. Thank you so much for your continued support.